My name is Chris Schroeder. That doesn't do anything for you except tell you who I am. I'm Chris Schroeder. I have been saved for over 50 years, and I've been in full-time ministry for 50 years this past November. And on the streets of New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, on the streets, college campuses like crazy. And I'm kind of sad that Dave, I'm glad for him because they're having twins, Dave Dixon Jr., and they're having twins. And I talked to him last night, prayed with him. And so this opportunity of doing this is really the Lord's, just the Lord's timing. I'm getting a master's degree in apologetics and evangelism at Dallas Theological Seminary. I'm a graduate of the Moody Bible Institute long time ago. And so I've been studying this for the last 2 years we're going to talk about it. So this is handling a secular critic. And I hope you take some notes. We're going to give you, this is going to be this seminar will show you 3 goals in our discussion. Our goal number 1 really is understanding what is before us in handling the secular critic. What's before us? What are we looking at here when we talk about evangelism? And that's really what it is. That's really what we're doing. Because understand this, apologetics is not an end to itself. It is a tool to use in evangelizing. That's really the important factor for us to understand. It is a tool in talking to people about Christ because they bring up questions and we give a ready defense. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, be ready to give an answer to every man that asks of you of the reason of the hope that's within you. That word, give a defense. It's the Greek word apologia, where we get the word apologetics. It's a defense. And now they're really getting fancy on us here, and they're calling it a theodicy. What is your theodicy? I'm going, man, I felt like I'm watching, what's that, Odyssey? The Adventures in Odyssey. I'm going, oh man, that's cool, theodicy. No, it's not mean that at all. It just means explanation. I'm going, why can't you just say that? Why do you have to get so honkin' fancy? And the word honkin' is from the Greek word hahonko, which means honkin'. Okay, so, and it's our goal, actually I have a pointer here, our goal is to understand what's before us. There's a lot before us, which can be very intimidating. It can be very intimidating for sure. And then our other goal is to understanding our approach in handling the secular critique, and then our employment of an apologetic approach. We're going to be rather fast on this because we only got an hour. Okie doke? So we're not going to get the whole full spectrum of whatever, okay? So what's before us? Our goal, what's before us? What is before us is the real issues in evangelism, and when you talk to the secular mind, here's where they are. Here is where they are, existentialism and humanism. And I'm going to read existentialism. This is from, both of these definitions are from Francis Schaeffer. Francis Schaeffer, who wrote The God Who Is There, which we're going to recommend that book like crazy. He says existentialism is a modern theory of man that holds that human experience is not describable in scientific or rational terms. This is what people are going to now call postmodernism. This is what people are going to now call postmodernism, and we've got some things to say about postmodernism. But existentialism stresses the need to make vital choices by using man's freedom in a contingent and apparently purposeless world. We got more to say on that. In humanism, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know, but I know it's sinful. That's what I know where it came from. It's satanic. That's where it came from. And humanism, there are two meanings to it. Number one, any philosophy or system of thought that begins with man alone. This is what people are doing. You go to the college campus, this is exactly how they're thinking. You watch on the TV, you watch commercials. Everything is about man and him alone. That is it. So it's a system of thought that begins with man alone in order to try to find a unifying meaning of life. Let's find what is the meaning and purpose of life. People don't know. When we go in here, we're in here, and there's lots of unsaved people. They have no meaning and purpose in life. They don't know. And the second one is a part of the humanistic thinking in the above wider sense that stresses the hope in an optimistic future for mankind. Hey, everything's getting better. And communism is this way. The thought patterns of communism, things are getting better, we're going to build a utopia and all this kind of stuff. And let me just say this. All these things that are outside the Bible will never deliver. They won't deliver what they're promising. So what happens is this. People espouse this stuff. They espouse it like crazy. We're going to talk about this in a moment, even further. Okay, we're talking about, this is from Francis Schaeffer, The God Who Is There, and we're going to recommend that book to him, or to you. And when we talk about this, the earlier philosophies with Kant and Hegel, these guys, I'm telling you, who cares about when they lived and died, but Kant lived before Hegel died, and then you've got this thing called the line of despair. And that is something that Francis Schaeffer came up with in the sense of all of a sudden you have despair. Any philosophy, let me just say this is going to sound really bad, but any philosophy outside of Jesus Christ will end up in despair. But this is more serious because now you got the Dutch theologian Soren Kierkegaard, who really coins the phrase blind leap of faith. And so what happens is he's going to say, okay, so Kierkegaard is going to say something like this, okay? He's going to say, you have the universe and you live in a universe. How's that one for you? But there's no rhyme or reason for the universe. There's no meaning and purpose in life. But you need to find meaning and purpose in life. But there is no meaning and purpose in life to find. But you need to find meaning and purpose in life. But there is no meaning and purpose in life. And if I had a dog and I'd make it chase its tail, that's exactly what he's doing. There's no meaning and purpose in life. And if you think that that's a thought pattern that people, just maybe occasionally say, those guys are weird and that kind of. This is the pervasive philosophy. This is the pervasive philosophy in our world today. So forget the issue of the secular mind, okay? Because everybody is espousing something. And we have the break here between secularism, secular existentialism, and the guy that would really represent that would be Martin Heidegger. Now, Martin Heidegger, sounds like he's on a soccer team or something, but Martin Heidegger would say something like this. And we're not going to give you the full blown on Martin Heidegger, but Martin Heidegger would say something like, he said that I need to find meaning and purpose in life, and the way I do it is a feeling of dread. You go, what are you scared of, Martin? He said, you don't understand. You betcha I don't. What are you talking about? He goes, you don't understand it. Because what they've done with words, with meanings, they put it into a realm, not higher or lower, but just different, a realm of non-reason. Non-reason. And that's why it doesn't make any sense, because it doesn't make any sense. It's non-reason. He would say this, the way I would find meaning and purpose in life is I have a feeling of dread. That feeling of dread gives him meaning and purpose in life. What are you scared of? Why do you dread? You don't understand what I'm talking about. You betcha I don't. And that's the secular existentialist. And then you got Karl Barth, B-A-R-T-H, but in German it's Barth. And Karl Barth is the religious existentialist. And he also coined what Heidegger or Kierkegaard said in terms of the blind leap of faith. He really pushed that, but from a religious point of view. And so his viewpoint was this. Barth would say, okay, man's getting better and better and better and better, and everything's getting fantastic. This is pre-World War I in Germany, right? And so man's getting better and better and better. And he said, we're going to reach that utopia. Then World War I broke out in his backyard. And he had to rethink, because he's saying man's not getting better. They're blowing each other up. We're killing each other. We're destroying each other. How can this be? And so what he did was he brought in the whole idea of neo-orthodoxy. Did you ever hear of that term? New orthodoxy. He said, because he's an existentialist, he's saying you can't prove using facts that Jesus rose again from the dead or that he even lived, but I believe it anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, you can't touch me or touch my lack of evidences for the gospel and the historicity of Jesus Christ. You can't, because that's not real. I'm going to move it over here to the non-reason side, and I'm just going to believe it. How's that one for you? So that's neo-orthodoxy. And so he would say, yeah, I believe in Jesus Christ as I don't know what you say as Savior, but I believe in the historicity, or I believe in Jesus Christ, but I can't prove it, but I still believe it. Blind leap of faith. I remember being a kid, a Roman Catholic kid, young Roman Catholic child, holding to that view. I told my Protestant friends, of which I was very jealous, because they didn't have to go to Mass. And I was really jealous of them. And I'm going, I said, well, why are you Catholic? I said, it's a blind leap. I remember I'm like 6. It's a blind leap of faith. Not that I'm intellectual. That's what I was taught. And boy, definitely not an intellectual. Okay, so this is where we're at. By the way, we say in a secular situation with, secular critique, it doesn't matter. People are holding on to religiosity, I'll put it that way, as a nostalgic viewpoint. They hold to these things because my grandfather did, and I was a Methodist, or I was a Catholic, it's all nostalgia. They have no reasons for their belief system. Okay? So, this book here, Reasonable Faith by William Lane Craig, who teaches apologetics, and how many have ever heard of William Lane Craig? Okay. William Lane Craig, he's in his book, Reasonable Faith. It's a choker. I love it. The opening salvo of his book is outstanding. But he gets into the real deep philosophical, logical action. If P1, then P2, then P3, and then therefore the 3 dots, you have this conclusion. I'm going, And I think he's trying to go at with Alvin Plantinga, who is probably one of the foremost authorities or foremost philosophers in the world. Alvin Plantinga, secular or non-secular, and he's a born-again Christian. He's still alive, but you got to read Plantinga sometime. If you can't get to sleep, read Alvin Plantinga. You know, I mean, he's really good. I really appreciate him. But wow. And so I don't know if William Lane Craig is trying to match him or whatever, but he debates a lot and that kind of thing. He said something that was really powerful, because in our discussion about, and when we talked about secular existentialism and religious existentialism, you can attack this. You can attack it, okay? But now they come in with this thing called postmodernism. How many have ever heard of that? It's a facade. It's a fake. It doesn't, so all of a sudden, because they don't give credibility to anything. They don't give credibility to language. They don't give credibility to anything. We're going to see what William Lane has to say about that. Okay, this is, who's a good reader out loud? Really a good, quick reader. You're a good, quick reader? Are you a good, quick reader? Okay, read this for us. And we got that, and then we got that. Okay, so he's going, I wish I never put my hand up. Go ahead, start off.
Okay.
Nice and loud.
Now I can imagine some of you thinking, but don't we live in a postmodern culture in which these appeals to traditional politics?
Excuse me, can you all hear him? Okay, go ahead, because I can't.
In which these appeals to traditional apologetic arguments are no longer effective, since postmodernists reject the traditional canons of logic, rationality, and truth. Rational arguments for the truth of Christianity no longer work. Rather, in today's culture, we should simply share our narrative and invite people to participate in it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. All I got to do now is just give the gospel. No bridging. And a lot of times when we do that, sorry to interrupt you, but when we do that, we start to talk past people, not understanding what they're thinking and not addressing it. So continue, please.
In my opinion, this sort of thinking could not be more mistaken. The idea that we live in a postmodern culture is a myth.
Thank you. Are you tired yet? Okay. You want me to take over? No, go ahead. Keep going.
In fact, a postmodern culture is an impossibility. It would be utterly unlivable. Nobody is a postmodernist when it comes to reading the labels on a medicine bottle versus a box of rat poison. If you've got a headache, you better believe what the texts have objective meaning. People are not relativistic when it comes to matters of science, engineering, and technology. Rather, they're relativistic and pluralistic in matters of religion and ethics. But that's not postmodernism. That's modernism.
Yeah, and modernism is going to include existentialism. That's what it's going to do. So when we talk about modernism, that's where we are. That's where I'm going to pick up for you, give you a break. That's just the old line positivism. I don't even know what that means. And verificationism, and I've got a hard time reading ism, okay, which held that anything you can't prove with your five senses, that's empiricism, is just a matter of individual taste and emotive expression, or your emotion. We live in a culture milieu which remains deeply modernist. People who think that we live in a postmodern culture have thus seriously misread our cultural situation. Indeed, I think that getting people to believe that we live in a postmodern culture is one of the craftiest deceptions that Satan has yet devised. Modernism is passé, he tells us. You need not worry about it any longer, so forget about it. It's dead and buried. Meanwhile, modernism, pretending to be dead, comes around again in a fancy new dress of postmodernism, masquerading as a challenger. Your old arguments and apologetics are no longer effective against this new arrival, we're told. Lay them aside. They're of no use. Just share your narrative or just share the gospel. You see where this all of a sudden it gets you super discouraged about sharing your faith. You say, well, I can't talk to these guys. I don't know how to do it. Just give them the gospel. And a lot of times you just you talk past people because we don't understand what they're doing and we're not addressing their need. So indeed, some of the weary and of the long battles of modernism actually welcome the new visitor with relief. So Satan deceives us into voluntarily laying aside our best weapons of logic and evidence, thereby ensuring unawares modernism's triumph over us. If we adopt this suicidal course of action, the consequences for the church in the next generation will be catastrophic. Christianity will be reduced to yet but another voice in a cacophony of competing voices. It's just one thing. That's good for you. That's good for me. Whatever I believe, type of thing. Each sharing his own narrative and none commending itself as the objective truth about reality, while scientific naturalism shapes our culture's view of how the world really is. It's a good book to get. It's a good book to get if you can plow through it. The opening line of it is outstanding. The opening introduction of Reasonable Faith, and he is a serious, serious scholar. And you can get his stuff on YouTube where he debates people and this kind of thing. He's excellent. He's excellent. So, our goal in understanding our approach, we want to hit the target. That's what we want to do. We want to hit a target. And so, presuppositional, I'm going to tell you, okay, so how do you do this? Presuppositional apologetics. Anybody have any idea what we're talking about on this? No? You do? What is it? What is it? You find your presupposition. So I'm talking to a guy, okay, this is the deal. I'm talking to a guy, okay, so presuppositional is the foundational idea, the person you are talking to. What is the bottom line of what they are saying? Okay, so you need to get that. We need to be like doctors, MDs, in terms of triaging their thought process. And it's easy peasy, lemon squeezy, especially when you've got the Holy Spirit helping you. The Holy Spirit will help you. Example of this man and his buddy in Times Square who do not believe in absolute truth. This happened to me in New York City's Times Square. I'm preaching in the open air, and I'm talking about absolute truth, that Jesus died on the cross, rose again from the dead. And this guy standing there, and he's got a buddy next to him, he's going, nah. So afterwards, I came up to him. I said, listen, you were shaking your head no. He goes, it didn't happen. I said, really? He said, there's no such thing. Here's what he said. There's no such thing as absolute truth. I said to him, and this is all Schaefer. I had read Schaefer while at Moody, and I'm looking at him, and he says, there's no such thing as absolute truth. I said, you just made an absolute statement. You can't say that. What you should have said was, his buddy's laughing. His buddy next to him. This is in Times Square, 20,000 people passing our board an hour. I said, you just made an absolute statement. I said, what you should have said was, I think there are no absolutes, but I'm not sure. I need to find them. This is what you go at the presupposition. What is the guy saying? Okay, essential books. Okay, we're going to give you a list of books here that I think you'll get your socks blessed off. Hopefully. Okay, essential books that teach how to identify presuppositions and the roadrunner position. Okay, the roadrunner position. I love this. And I owe it to Francis Schaeffer and Norman Geisler. These guys are both with the Lord and terrific scholars. The first one, and I recommend you get this book and you read it. It will give you the history of existentialism and why people believe in existentialism, why people hold to that. They don't know that it means, they don't know that, oh, this is existentialism and I'm going to hold to that. No, they don't hold to that. They just know what it is. And they live it every day. Okay, so Francis Schaeffer. And then the next one is I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. This is an outstanding book that teaches you how, both of them teach you how to do this, but this really teaches you how to look at their presupposition. What are they saying? Because they're going to contradict themselves. Anything other than the gospel, they're going to contradict themselves. Why do you hold to what you hold to? And he teaches us how to do that. This is a required text. Actually, both of them are at the Ezekiel Project School of Evangelism. We require this of our students to read them, actually read them. So evidentiary, we talked about presuppositional apologetics. Evidentiary apologetics is this. It's what are the historical facts of Christianity. So we get at their philosophy, we get with those guys, right? And those guys are telling me that there's no such thing as absolute truth. And I said, you just made an absolute statement. And, his buddy laughed. And I said to him, let's just play a game for a second. Can we pretend? This isn't Times Square. I go, yeah. I go, yeah, let's pretend. I said, okay, let's just pretend that I'm a Gestapo agent and it's 1939 and we're in Nazi Germany and you're a Jew and you're hiding your whole family in your house. How does that work for you? And what right do I have, if there's no such thing as absolute truth, what right do I have to come and tell you we're going to take you and your whole family and we're going to gas them? We're going to kill them in a concentration camp. 6 million of them. I said, right or wrong? The guy goes, well, that's wrong. I said, how can you say that if there's nothing absolute? How can you possibly say that? If it's right for me, it's right. I'm the Gestapo. I'm in power. We're going to nail you. This is how it flushes out. And sometimes you have to be like that strong with people because they got to see the error of their philosophical bent. They got to see it. Okay? So when we talk, and then what you do is you give them historical facts. Did you know that Jesus lived in time and space? Did you know that Jesus is God in the flesh? Did you know that the Gospels are credible? Did you know that this is, and so if this is true in the past, it's going to be true in the future. He's coming again. Did you know these things? And the answer, I'd say 99% of the time, is they don't know that at all. They've got just enough Christianity to inoculate them from the real thing. They have no idea what Christianity is. They don't. You talk to people what it takes for a person to get to heaven. Here in the South, you might get a better answer. But up north, you're going to get, 9 out of 10, you get the 10th one might know. But they don't. They don't know. Did he actually rise? And here's a big one for you. Here's a big one. People say, we don't employ, why doesn't this work? Yeah, there you go. We don't employ, we should not, should we employ the scientific method or employ the laws of evidence? Scientific method can never be employed, so don't get caught in the trap. The scientific method has to be repeatable. All you scientists out there, it has to be controlled, repeatable, etc., right? Laws of evidence don't do that. You cannot prove that you got up this morning using the scientific method. But you can using laws of evidence. And that's where we have to go. That's where we have to go. So evidence that demands a verdict. Evidence that demands a verdict. I want the new evidence. I want the prior one with just Josh. Just Josh. Sean's cool. I like Sean McDowell and all that kind of stuff, but there's some things I just don't like about his philosophy of dealing with people. So, but Josh McDowell has done new evidence that demands a verdict. Outstanding in giving you information that you can talk to people. Outstanding. So get that, put that in your library. Get it on Kindle. Get it. Okie doke. And then the goal of employment of our apologetics. How are we going to do? I was thinking about this in terms of, preparation for this. I'm thinking to myself, what are you going to give them? So let's look at something here. We're going to look, and if you have your Bibles with you, turn there if you would. We're going to look at how Paul did it. How Paul did this. And Acts chapter 17, we're going to look at Yahweh versus the gods. And it's Acts 17 where Paul is in Mars Hill. Okay, the Mars Hill situation, starting at verse, I think, 15. Is that right? Starting at verse 15. And would somebody read that for us?
15 through
the end of the chapter.
17, 15.
Yeah, nice and loud for everybody.
So those who conducted Paul brought him to Athens, and receiving a command for Silas and Timothy to come to him with all speed, they departed. Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit provoked within him when he saw that the city was given over to idols. Therefore he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and with the Gentile worshippers, and in the marketplace daily with those who happened to be there. Then a certain Epicurean and Stoic philosophers encountered him, and some said, "What does this babbler want to say?" Others said, "He seems to be a proclaimer of foreign gods, because he preached to them Jesus and the resurrection." And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus, saying, "May we know what is this new doctrine of which you speak? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears. Therefore we want to know what these things mean." For all the Athenians and the foreigners who were there spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. Then Paul stood in the midst of the Areopagus and said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in all things you are very religious. For as I was passing through and considering the objects of your worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' Therefore, the one whom you worship without knowing, him I proclaim to you, God who made this world and everything in it, since he is the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed times and boundaries of their dwellings, so that they should seek the Lord in hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, and also some have our own poet. Some of our own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. Therefore, since we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the divine nature is like gold, silver, or stone, something to be shaped by art and man's devising. Truly, these times of ignorance God overlooked, but now commands all men everywhere to repent, because he has appointed a day which he will judge the world in righteousness by man whom he has ordained. He has given assurance of this to all by raising him from the dead. And when they had heard from the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, while others said, we will hear you again on this matter. So Paul departed from among them. However, some men joined him and believed him in Vicinius the Areopagus, a woman named Marius, and others with him.
Thank you very much. And thanks, bro, for reading from the screen. I really appreciate you doing that. Really do. So this is Yahweh versus the gods, Acts 17, 16 through 34. And what we're going to see with this is the proposition is Dr. Luke shows us 4 aspects of Paul's ministry in Athens that we can understand and emulate or copy. We can do this, okay? And this is why it's in the scriptures that we can do this. There is a word that I want you to get familiar with, and it's called apperception. Apperception is taking somebody from what they know to what they don't know. And Paul does this beautifully. You notice that what Paul does, and he's going to show us his burden. What he does is he walks around, and just like Ezekiel, he said, I sat where they sat. He walks around Athens. He's by himself. He's waiting for Timothy. He's waiting for them and the other guys too. And he's by himself and he's walking around. What we have in grass, they have in rocks. And they also have, it's a very arid area. And they have gods all over the place. Statues all over they got a plethora of God statues, these guys they were doing that. I'm going to just give you this because I want to get to Rachel McLaughlin. She said this, contrary to popular conceptions, the Christian movement was multicultural, multi-ethnic from the start. Absolutely. So we think, well, I got to know this guy's culture. Paul was brilliant, but what did he preach? He preached Jesus Christ and Him crucified and resurrected from the dead. That's what he did. He preached Jesus Christ crucified and resurrected from the dead. And then I have a teacher friend of mine at Dallas. He said, the models we have in mind are Paul in Athens interacting with the Stoics and the Epicurean philosophers and reasoning with the Jews. So what does he do? He looks around, he goes around through, and he sees the culture. He walks it. He walks Athens. He walks all the way through. He sees, and his heart is breaking. Why? Because he's not treating Christianity as one of many ideas that people... It's the only idea. The gospel is the only thing that'll save lives. The gospel is the only thing that'll help a person live a life that would glorify. It's the only thing. Without Jesus Christ, people will die and spend eternity in the lake of fire. That's the Bible. Jesus preached more on hell than he did heaven. More on hell than anybody else in the New Testament. More on hell than any other subject. And he died on the cross to save us from it. And he rose again from the dead to confirm that this is what it is. He is who he is. He's God in the flesh. And that's what he did. And so we see his burden. Paul was burdened. And I got to ask you a question, because when Paul is thinking about these people, he's thinking it from an eternal perspective. And he's thinking it from a biblical perspective. And that's what we have to do. We have to hold to the scriptures. Now, you might not have all the answers for this. All the answers for the historicity of the Bible and what about this and what about... Listen, do your homework. You can examine it. The more you look at the scriptures, the better they look. It is the skeptic who is going to tell you, well, you got a problem here in this text and you got a problem in that text. I'm talking about the original manuscripts. They are without error. And our translations are top drawer. They're fantastic. So you got, I don't want to go into it because we don't have time. But you've got Paul, he gets a burden. And then in verses 22 through 23, he uses his method. What's his method in verses 22 and 23? Anybody? What's his method? If you could hurry up with that, that would be good. Say again? I'm sorry? Apperception. Apperception. That's right, apperception. he notices when he sees all these gods, they got gods on the doors. They got gods in their lawn, or they're in front of their house. They got gods walking down the street. They got statues there. Poseidon, Zeus, all these guys, right? And so he comes up and he sees this one that says, to the unknown God. Oh man, the Spirit of God gave him wisdom and said, okay, I see you're religious. He doesn't say, you guys are from the pit of hell and you need to. No, he doesn't do that. He takes them from what they know to what they don't know. And so what they didn't know is the unknown God. I see you are religious. I see you're very religious. And I see you have a thing here, a statue or whatever, to the unknown God. I am here to tell you about him. What? What? You're going to talk to us about him? Yeah, smooth as silk. Smooth as silk. And that's the Spirit of God. God will do that, and you'll be blessed when you start to use and employ that. You take them from what they know to what they don't know. And so he goes, I'm going to tell you about this unknown God. Does that mean he has to know everything about all the Greek gods and all that kind of stuff? He probably had a good idea, but I got to tell you something. He knew Jesus. And he's going to give them Jesus. And he's going to give them, that he died on the cross and rose again from the dead. Now he is going to go, and they're listening. And they're going, listen, we're going to take you to the Areopagus and we're going to listen to you. We're going to listen to you. And come and tell us, what is this guy going to tell us? He believes in people are going to rise from the dead. Are you kidding me? That is like absurd. But he preached Christ. And the end result was that people believed and some didn't. They thought he was crazy. But those people who listened to him and heard him, believed on him, believed on the Lord Jesus Christ. So never be ashamed of that. Never be ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God unto salvation. He tells that to the Corinthians. It is the power of God unto salvation. Same cultural bent as Athens, but Athens more famous, of course. Athens is the intellectual capital of the world. Rome is the political capital of the world, and Jerusalem the religious capital of the world. So these guys are going, and he's preaching Christ. So what happens is we see his burden, his method, his message, and then we see the reward. Some people believed on him. I'm going through this kind of fast, but this is really, really powerful. So study Acts 17. See how he did it. And that's how we want to do it. Listen, I can use apologetics is nothing without the gospel. It's not an end to itself. It is not an end to itself. It is a tool we use to employ when we are talking to people about Christ. That's what we want to do. Okay, so there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure you have some questions maybe are formulating in your mind. But I want to just say this. One of the number one question, this is according to Paul Little, who wrote Know what you believe, I guess. He wrote a long time ago. He was the vice president in charge of evangelism for InterVarsity Fellowship. And he died as a young man. He died young in an automobile accident, but he wrote a couple of good books. He said that the number one question that he got on college campuses, and it's still true today, is if God is so loving and so powerful, then why does he allow evil in this world? If he can do that and wipe it away, and he's so loving and powerful and all that, why does he allow evil? And there's only two answers to this. One is a Calvinistic answer. God did it for his greater glory. God allowed all this stuff for his greater glory. I reject it. I reject it. Because the other one is the free will of man. And when we talk about this, I want to introduce you to a book that I have read recently, and this is probably the most outstanding book on the issue of the problem of evil. Norman Geisler answers the question, what about the heathen? You know, if I don't get to that people in the hinterland or wherever, I don't get to them, will they get the gospel? Will they be accountable and everything? He answers that. He answers the whole issue and it's the FWD, the Free Will Defense Theodicy explanation. And he is outstanding. It's only 170 some pages. And it is excellent. It is excellent. We can't blame this stuff and the world's ills on God. We cannot do it. We should not do it. That makes God evil. Because ultimately God would have to be the creator of evil and the creator of sin. He'd have to be that way. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, if God is in control, and that's what a lot of guys say, God is in so sovereignly control and he has to be in control of everything. And so that means he created evil. And the Bible is like not for that. Just thought I'd share that with you. God is not for that. And James chapter 1, verse 13, 14. And you look at that and you go, man, no way. No way. God did not create evil. He allowed it. He got but he didn't create it. He didn't stop it, but he didn't create it. Man did it. Geisler gives an incredible defense. Unbelievable. I thought I'd share that with you because this is so important of an issue. That's the number one issue. If you want to, if you do any kind of evangelism, that kind of stuff, the number one, it doesn't matter where it is. It's on the street. And it comes in different forms. We're doing some open air work and we were in Brooklyn, and a guy one of the students came up to me and said, we don't know how to answer this guy. His name was Danny. And he said, how come babies, and the question was this is really the real question. How come babies in Africa have cleft palates? If God is so powerful, why does he allow babies in Africa with cleft palates? I went up to him, I said, look, I've got an answer for you. I'm a free will guy, that's for sure. And I said, I got an answer for you. But you're hearing the gospel right now. And I want to tell you, you need to trust in Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. I got an answer for your question. No questions about it. I got one. But you're hearing the gospel right now. His name is Danny. I said, Danny, you need to trust in Christ right now. Would you like to do that? He goes, I would. And so I went right what the gospel was. Best piece of literature I could ever recommend to you is this one right here. We have them on our display, and it says, may I ask you a question? And a person could take this and get saved. It's self-contained in that regard. It's not pre-evangelistic, it is evangelistic. And it's by Evantel. Outstanding material. So you can take some of our little display for the Ezekiel project. So this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. How do you answer the secular critic? First of all, don't be scared of them. Don't be scared. I don't know all this stuff. No. Not just give them the narrative, but understand what they're saying. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. Respect what they have to say. Really respect it. Read the book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist by Geisler. Read that book. He's going to show you how to discern the roadrunner effect. How do you go around? These guys are going to, I tell you what, you got socks on? Tape them. Because they're going to blow your socks right off. Tape those socks on. And then get this book and read it too. This is outstanding stuff. Souls are on the line here. People think that us Christians, have no answer. that we've committed intellectual suicide. The reverse is the truth. They've committed intellectual suicide. We have the truth. And that's not like, well, you're kind of prudent. Well, you're like, well, hey, what's wrong with you? No, 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 no. The evidence is stacked for the Christian. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Okay, any questions you might have? Any questions? Because we've got 10 minutes for questions. Yes? I'm really bad at hearing. Somebody help me. Oh, the Roadrunner effect is what I showed you with the guy. I looked at his presupposition. His bottom line is that there's no absolute truth. I said, wait a second. And just the Lord's really great on this. He brings it right to your mind. But I thought, and I got this from Francis Schaeffer because Geisler and Turek hadn't written yet on the Roadrunner effect. I said, I didn't know that's what I was doing. But the Roadrunner effect is to find out their presupposition and find out the flaw, and then ask the simple question. You just made it's a statement. You just made an absolute statement. And so the absolute statement was the Roadrunner effect. In other words, you go and I don't know why he calls it Roadrunner effect. I'm just following suit. But you find out what their presupposition is. What are they basing their thing on? And sometimes you got to clear the layers out. And so by asking questions, this is what you think. This is why you hold to this. Is that true? And then all of a sudden you see it's false. It comes ding, and you say, wait a second. No, you can't say that. I can't say that? I just did. Yeah, no. Yes?
The coyote never gets the roadrunner.
The coyote never gets the Roadrunner. That's why the Roadrunner effect. I like this guy. Yes, Bill.
Hey, Chris, when you talked about that guy, Danny, and you made reference to Little's question, if God is so loving, why is there evil? Could you just restate what an answer is? I know that you gave Danny the gospel, and I know that is key.
Yes.
But could you just clarify?
Okay, so clarification on that is if depending on what you hold to. If you're a Calvinist, you're going to hold to the greater glory of God because God had to ultimately create evil. Oh, the Calvinists don't like that. Don't say it that way. No way. Way. They do. The other option is man did this. And Romans chapter 8 tells us because of our sin, all of creation, and that covers all of the tornadoes and hurricanes and all that kind of stuff. Why did this happen? We were passing literature out at Ground Zero 1 month after 9/11, and you could still smell the acrid electrical smoke and smells on it. It was as quiet as this. And we're standing there, we passed out about 3,000, may I ask you a question booklets. And people would come up and they were lining up to take it. This is how hungry people were for answers. And I said, may I ask you a question? And then they were lining up down the street where they had all the placards on the fences and everything, This is 1 month afterwards. And you could hear the drone of a truck pulling out with one I-beam, this kind of thing. And people would come up and say, why did God do this? My question is, why do you always assign God the issue? I didn't say that, but they say, why did God do this? I said, God didn't do it. The terrorists did it. Free will, they did that. And that's very defensible. This is really defensible. Yes?
Yes, going back to your sources. Karl Barth, is he the Swiss theologian?
Swiss or German? I think he's German. He might be the Swiss. I don't know if he liked hot chocolate or not. I don't.
If he's off on that, is he off on more stuff that you would know?
Oh yeah. He's holding text. He's a liberal. Oh man, big time. He doesn't believe in the historicity of stuff. I just believe it. He took it out of the realm of the rational and put it in the realm of the non-rational. So that's a big thing. I like what McDowell said, Josh McDowell. He said, I cannot accept with my heart what my head rejects. This has got to make sense. We need to study ourselves approved unto God, workmen that need not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. And so this is something we must do. It is imperative for us to do it. Give an answer to every man that asketh you of the reason of the hope that's within you with meekness and fear. That defense, theodicy, that explanation, that defense, apologia, that's how we use it. Any other questions you might have? Yes?
How deeply would you say that we should be knowledgeable about the other things that people believe, other religions, other philosophies?
Without getting into it too much? I tell you, okay, so this is why I'm not getting any book royalties on this at all. That's for sure. This is why I'm recommending to you, and you can get it on Audible, you can listen to it. Evidence that Demands a Verdict is outstanding. I recommend the older copies, not this latest one. And then also, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. That is an outstanding book. You will never be disappointed. There's some things I disagree with him on. He's a progressive creationist. That is like a theistic evolutionist. But you can learn a great deal from this. Absolutely. And then also the God who is there, Francis Schaeffer, outstanding. He gives you the history of existentialism in encapsulated form. And he's got a glossary in the back. You got to know what he's talking about. And when people talk to you, the Lord will bring this back to your mind and to your heart, no questions about it. So you have this, and this is our apologetic, and I'm going through all this, because one of the greatest books, I think, in apologetic annals is this one, 170 pages. Outstanding. The number one question, if God is so loving, why does he allow evil? He answers it. He answers the question, too, about the people in Irian Jaya or someplace that never heard. What happens to them? He answers it. And it's all free will defense. It's all the free will. Okie doke? Any other questions at all? Yes?
I just piggyback on the brother who just asked the question. So you had one slide where you had the secular and on the religious divide.
Yes. That's from Francis Schaeffer.
Yeah. Do you see the divide between secular or liberal and other religions other than Christianity narrowing? And do you see why?
Because what's the big honking difference? The Greek word on that one. What's the big difference between religious and secular? If it has no foundation whatsoever. If words don't mean anything anymore. Roadrunner effect. You get a postmodernist. Oh, wait, we don't have to believe that kind of stuff. Well, let me ask you a question. Do you take medicine? Yeah? What is it? Strychnine? Just take strychnine, man. It'll do the job as Eliquis will do. Yeah, it'll do the job on you. All of a sudden words mean things. You don't live this. You don't live this. And you point this out to people. And so the gapping, definitely narrowing. Absolutely. Good observation. Question? Yes?
Do you have any suggestions for, you told us to study the historicity of the scriptures.
Yes.
Do you have any good resources?
Oh, there's a ton. McDowell. McDowell has it. The New Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell only. Look at that. He gives that. He combined two books, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and then he wrote a sequel to it, New Evidence That Demands a Verdict, and then he combined them, and that's in the one volume now. Outstanding material. Outstanding. Yes?
What resources do you have for evolution, macroevolution, creationism, all of that?
Nice. Is somebody translate for me? No, I mean, I'm not. I can't hear it. What was the question?
What resources do you have for evolution and creationism?
Creation. It's called the Bible. Yeah, that's my resource. I happen to believe in the 6 days, like in the Hebrew, you have the first day, Day you can translate a whole bunch of ways, right? But if you have a numeric value in front of it, the Hebrew guy will tell you this, if you have a numeric value in front of it, it always means a 24-hour period. My son doesn't teach, but he knows Hebrew really well. And that's what he told me. And I've heard that before my son ever took Hebrew. Yes?
Would that also, I guess, if I can add to like that creationism, but theistic evolution as well? Because that is a huge thing right now.
Theistic evolution?
Theistic evolution.
Oh, yeah. It's very popular. But theistic evolution doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. You've got all this, you've got the stratas, you've got all this stuff, right? And you can't say, and God said this is good, because you have to have death. Romans 5:12 blows it out of the water. Wherefore by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So death passed upon all men, for all have sinned. You have to have death predate Adam and Eve. To hold to that. You have to have death, and it does. I mean, it predates with the fossil record and all this kind of stuff. And he says, God says to us in his word that that's not true. Sin entered into the world, and death by sin. So death passed upon all men. That's not only the traducian theory, the origin of the soul, and how somebody gets the sin nature passed through the male, but it is, and that happened at that time when Adam sinned. Boom, the whole world is now cursed. Not just man, but the whole world, and that's what the Bible teaches. Sorry, I'm just going with that. Call me simple, but that's what it is. Let me just say this too, and. Whoa, we're overtime. Okay, let me just say this. We're teaching a course at the Ezekiel Project School of Evangelism, and it's online. And it is right here. Oh, I'll go blind. Right here, we have this thing, it's free. It's a college-level course, and it's on apologetics. And it's our course that our students are taking, and we'll sit there and take, and we'll be online via Zoom and that kind of stuff. So take this. It tells you how to do that, and it's absolutely free. Barb, is there a tech fee for that? I don't know. Also, take some of our stuff about this. Our school is designed for evangelism, and so we study systematic theology. My suggestion is start to study. Start today. You can do it. You can do it. Okie doke. Any other questions real quick? Any snide remarks? Any comments or anything like that? Okay.
Well, for Adam to sin, Satan had to sin first. So he was.
Yeah, but it's not the human.
No.
You're right. The first sin was with Satan. But he's not human, and the race didn't fall. Those guys, the third of the angelic race fell. Steve, would you close us, if you don't mind?